He had the perfect wife, the perfect life, and a marriage the whole world believed in. A relationship that looked like it came straight out of a Hollywood fairy tale. Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston weren't just famous, they were the definition of the ideal couple, admired, envied, and constantly in the spotlight. Every red carpet appearance, every interview, every moment between them only made people believe even more that their love was real and unbreakable. They had everything: fame, success, beauty, and a connection that seemed impossible to shake. But sometimes the most perfect stories hide the most dangerous turning points. Because in 2004, something changed, something no one saw coming, when Brad Pitt met Angelina Jolie. And what started as a simple movie collaboration quickly turned into whispers behind the scenes, whispers that grew louder with every passing day. Rumors began to spread, questions began to rise, and before anyone could fully understand what was happening, the story that once symbolized perfect love was slowly turning into something much darker, something filled with tension, temptation, and consequences no one could control. And soon, what the world believed to be unbreakable would collapse into one of the most shocking and talked about love triangles in Hollywood history. A story filled with passion, betrayal, and choices that would change all of their lives forever. Because in the end, this wasn't just a love story, it was a story about a moment that should never have happened, but did. By the early 2000s, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston weren't just two successful celebrities, they were the couple everyone believed in. The kind of relationship that felt rare, almost unreal in a place like Hollywood. From the moment they started dating in 1998, everything about them seemed effortless, natural, and perfectly in sync. And when they got married in a lavish Malibu wedding in 2000, it only confirmed what the world already thought, that this was a love story meant to last. Brad Pitt was at the peak of his career, starring in major blockbuster films and becoming one of the most desired actors in the world, while Jennifer Aniston was the heart of Friends, one of the most successful television shows of all time. Together, they represented everything people admired: success, beauty, stability, and a kind of happiness that felt genuine, not manufactured. The media followed their every move. Fans celebrated their love, and interviews only made their relationship seem even stronger. Jennifer openly described this time as the happiest period of her life, and for a while, it truly felt like nothing could go wrong, like they had built something strong enough to survive anything. But behind the scenes, far away from the cameras and public smiles, small cracks were beginning to form. Quiet, almost invisible at first, but growing slowly over time. And as their lives became more demanding, their schedules more intense, and the pressure of fame more overwhelming, those cracks began to spread. Because sometimes, the most dangerous problems are the ones no one else can see. And by the time the world noticed, it was already too late. The perfect marriage was already starting to fall apart. In 2004, everything truly began to change when Brad Pitt was cast alongside Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. At first, it was just another major Hollywood project, another role in an already successful career. But from the moment filming began, something felt different. Their chemistry wasn't just strong, it was immediate, intense, and almost impossible to ignore. On screen, they played a married couple hiding secrets and living double lives. But off screen, that same tension seemed to follow them everywhere. The way they looked at each other, the way they laughed, the way they stayed close even when the cameras stopped rolling. It didn't feel like acting anymore. It felt real. And that's when the whispers began. Quiet at first, almost unnoticeable, but spreading quickly through the set and beyond. People started to talk, to question, to wonder if something more was happening behind the scenes. Because this wasn't just chemistry, this was something dangerous, something that wasn't supposed to happen, something that crossed a line that should never have been crossed. And yet, neither of them seemed able to pull away. Even as the rumors grew louder and the attention more intense, They continued to deny everything, insisting it was just work, just a movie, just a role. But sometimes the strongest connections are the ones people try the hardest to hide. And what made it even more complicated was the one thing no one could ignore. Brad Pitt was still married, which meant that whatever was happening between them wasn't just risky, it was forbidden. And once something like that begins, it rarely ends without consequences. It only leads to something bigger, something messier, and something far more destructive than anyone expected. By 2005, the rumors surrounding Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were no longer whispers behind closed doors. They had exploded into a full-blown global scandal. Headlines were everywhere, tabloids were relentless, and every move they made was watched, analyzed, and judged. Even as both continued to deny that anything was happening, the public was no longer convinced. And then, everything shattered. When Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt officially announced their separation, it sent shockwaves across the world. Because this wasn't just another celebrity breakup, this was the collapse of a relationship people truly believed in. But what happened next made everything even worse. Only months later, photos surfaced of Brad and Angelina in Kenya with their son Maddox, smiling, relaxed, and undeniably close. And in that moment, the narrative changed completely. What had once been rumors now looked like proof. The media went into overdrive. Headlines became harsher, louder, more aggressive. The public reaction turned emotional, divided, and intense. Fans began choosing sides. Some stood firmly with Jennifer as the betrayed and humiliated wife. Others defended Brad and Angelina as two people who had simply fallen in love under complicated circumstances. But the controversy reached its peak with the release of the now infamous W magazine photo shoot. Brad and Angelina were seen posing as a perfect domestic family, laughing, playing, and acting as if nothing had happened, as if the past didn't exist. And for many people, that wasn't just insensitive, it felt cruel, calculated, and deeply disrespectful, especially toward Jennifer, who was still dealing with the emotional fallout in full public view. She wasn't just heartbroken, she was being forced to watch her private pain turned into global entertainment. And in the eyes of the public, the story was no longer complicated, it was simple. There was a victim, there was a betrayal, and there were consequences. And in that moment, what had once been a beautiful Hollywood love story was completely rewritten into one of the most explosive, controversial, and unforgettable scandals the industry had ever seen. The divorce between Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston was finalized in 2005. It officially ended what the world once saw as a perfect marriage. But for Jennifer, the real pain didn't end there. It was only beginning. Because she wasn't just losing a husband, she was losing the life she thought she would have. A future that had been built in front of millions of people who believed in her happiness. And now, those same people were watching her heartbreak unfold in real time. Every headline, every rumor, every accusation added more pressure to an already painful reality. The media speculated endlessly, questioning her choices, her priorities, even blaming her for the collapse of the marriage, suggesting that she had chosen her career over having children, something she later strongly denied, making it clear that she had always wanted both love and a family. But in a world driven by headlines and narratives, the truth didn't always matter. And as she tried to process the emotional aftermath, she was forced to do it under a spotlight that never turned off. Meanwhile, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt continued to move forward together, building a new life, a new family, adopting children, traveling the world, and becoming one of the most talked-about couples of their time, often referred to as Brangelina, a name that represented both fascination and controversy. But no matter how much time passed, the beginning of their relationship continued to follow them, raising questions that never fully disappeared. Because for many people, the timeline still felt too close, too sudden, too complicated to ignore. And while each of them tried to move on in their own way, the story refused to fade. Living on in public memory is more than just a breakup, but as a moment that reshaped all of their lives forever. Because sometimes the end of a relationship isn't just an ending, it's something that stays with you long after everything else has moved on. Over the years, the story continued in ways no one could have predicted. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie built a life that, for a time, seemed strong, united, and unbreakable. They raised a large family together, shared a global image of purpose and partnership, and eventually married in 2014, a moment many believed finally closed the chapter on the scandal that started it all. But just 2 years later, in 2016, everything collapsed again. When Angelina filed for divorce, it brought their relationship to a sudden and very public end. And in that moment, the story that once shocked the world came full circle, because the couple that had been born out of controversy was now ending in controversy, raising a question people couldn't ignore. Was it ever meant to last? Or was it always built on something too fragile to survive? Meanwhile, Jennifer Aniston quietly rebuilt her life away from the chaos, focusing on her career, her personal growth, and finding a sense of peace after years of public scrutiny. Yet even after decades, the fascination with this love triangle has never truly disappeared. Moments like the brief reunion between Brad and Jennifer at the SAG Awards reignited emotions across the world, reminding people of what once was and what could have been. And maybe that's why this story still matters, because it was never just about three celebrities. It was about love, timing, choices, and consequences. And to this day, people still argue, still debate, still take sides, trying to answer a question that has never had a clear answer. Was it true love that changed everything, or a betrayal that destroyed something that could have lasted forever? And maybe the truth is, it depends on who you choose to believe.